Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Countdown Scouting Network. I'm your host, Joey Garcia. Today we've got a good one. Decided today there are some pro days going on, but really nothing too wild. Sorry, my hair's kind of a little wild today, but nevertheless, so there are some pro days that have gone on since our last episode on Monday. Nothing really of note. I guess the only thing would be Florida had their pro day, and Malik Davis, the running back, not Damian Pierce, but the other running back who's supposed to be a better pass catcher and kind of more at the change of pace back, ended up running a 4.7 40. He was already going to be a day 3 pick. He's supposed to be a change of pace guy. He came in around 200 pounds, ran a 4.7. So I do think he'll go undrafted. I think he'll land on a roster. I don't think that 40 time was indicative of his game speed. But, I mean, there are teams that have thresholds, and he did not meet those thresholds. For probably about 20 teams, and the other 10 teams decide, I might as well just grab him as an undrafted free agent. So, all right, before we get into anything else, today is going to be a listener mailbag episode. I have some questions that were already sent in. And then once we get through that, people that are in the live stream, they can go ahead and drop some more questions, and we can keep answering until there are no more questions. This might go on for 15 minutes. This might go on for an hour and a half. I'm down for as long as you guys are down for. So let's just have some fun today. Getting into some of my laundry list. So I made a Patreon. The link is down in the description. I don't expect anyone to join it. Hi, Laura. Yes, married life is wonderful. Look, I'm even wearing it. Hope you guys are having fun at Shiloh's. I will stop by soon. Sorry, getting back to that. The Patreon's down in the description. With the Patreon, you would just get early access to some of the scouting reports that'll be going up on the website, which that link is also in the description. As well as, getting to... I don't remember what everything was, but I mean, you're able to submit some extra questions or some topics that you want discussed on the podcast. Maybe some prospects, because I am probably only going to be able to get through like 100 scouting reports. I think is my goal, is 100 scouting reports this next draft cycle. So if there's a prospect that you want me to go ahead and scout and make a scouting report on, you can go ahead and suggest that. And also, I think for that very last tier, which again, I don't expect anyone to do that. That's just an extra thing. I just love for you guys to like and subscribe to this. That last one, I'll even take you backstage, and we can, back behind the scenes, go one-on-one and do a scouting report together. We can watch some film and break down film together. So I think it'd be fun. But again, that's not necessary. That's just an extra step. So I got through the Patreon. Let's see. So I do have a couple questions. First thing I wanted to really get into, I've been trying to watch some quarterback film. Again, it's not too easy right now because I don't have all 22 from some of these schools. So hopefully next draft cycle, I'll be able to get more all 22 film, so I can actually break down what the quarterback's looking at and reads and progressions. But I've been watching some of Malik Willis of Liberty. He's my QB1 with, again, the limited quarterback scouting that I have. And I don't know. I was watching the Ole Miss tape, which everyone knows the Ole Miss tape was not his best tape. He was getting a lot of pressure, and he was, having to leap the pocket earlier than he wanted to. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of scared me a little bit from Malik Willis. I think he's still definitely my QB1 because this draft class, again, there's not really that solid QB1. So I would rather rank him higher and kind of throw a moonshot out there with all the physical traits he has. He has a rocket arm. Uh, he's got the quickness in his feet. It's kind of like if you took Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and put them together, or like a Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. The only thing is, Ole Miss, rushed 4, sometimes 5 guys, but the majority of the time they stayed in like a cover 3. I saw cover 2 every once in a while, but the majority of the time it was cover 3, and they weren't disguising it. It wasn't a 2 shell and then it shifted to 1 and they send a blitzer. It was cover 3 and it stayed in cover 3, and he just wasn't reading the field. And I don't know if it's just because he was, again, getting pressured a lot, but it was just something that kind of scared me a little bit to say, okay, this guy has been playing college football for a while. I think he's a 5th-year senior. He was a 4-star coming out. So I don't know. He's got the upside, but I do think he's going to go top 12. And if he goes to a team like Carolina, I keep thinking Carolina at 6, there's a chance he goes there. And if he goes there because Matt Rule's trying to save his job, if he goes there and he's forced to start in front of Sam Darnold with an offensive line that's not that good, I think it could ruin him. I really do. I don't know if he will be anything special, but I think it'll ruin him. So I think later we can kind of get on to my top 10 QBs and kind of how I've evaluated them. But there were a couple questions I want to get into before that. So, and we have a really fun question that I know a lot of the listeners, if they are out there right now, wanted me to get into. So, first thing is, with Kyle Hamilton's pro day, where he actually ran slower than here, we'll go back to the Malik Willis because I got a comment about it. The next Justin Herbert. I didn't think Herbert was bad at reading post-snap, getting post-snap progression, but you're right. He did sometimes throw weird balls that you're like, what are you looking at? So I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think that he'll be able to step in like Justin Herbert. I think it'll be more like a Jordan Love situation, which with it being Jordan Love, with that Jordan Love situation, again, I don't know if he'll ever actually be able to read defenses. So I still think that's the moonshot you take, and that's why I think he's worth a late first rounder, like at 20 for the Steelers. I think that's worth it. But I mean, you're talking about top 12 pick. I don't think it's worth it. You're talking about teams trading up to come get him if he falls to 15. I don't think it's worth it. I like that question though, Toby. Thank you for that. So getting back into the Kyle Hamilton talk, his pro day numbers weren't very good. His 40-yard dash was actually worse than it was at the combine. I was thinking it was going to get a little better. So am I worried about Kyle Hamilton? No, I'm not worried about him because, again, you look at his game tape and, he played up top against Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young and Tua, and he's played up top and had to play these guys. And he was fine. He's been guarding guys as well, like trying to think of good slot receivers that he's played off the top of my head, and I can't really think of any right now. Amari Rodgers, he's had to guard one-on-one before. And he's also come downhill and he's made tackles on guys like Brian Robinson or really wish I could come up with some more guys that Notre Dame's played that, like Jerome Ford, that kind of stuff. Alec Pierce, the wide receiver for Cincinnati. All these guys. I mean, he goes up against studs, and the game tape doesn't really show that he's a 4.65 or whatever he ended up running. He ran a 4.59 and then a 4.65 is what I think he ended up doing at his pro day. And I don't see it. Now, do I think he's going to be a top 5 pick anymore? I do not. I could see at pick 13 going to the Houston Texans for their second pick. Yeah, I know it is. Grant says it's hard to come up with a good competition that Notre Dame has played. Yeah, it's true. I was trying to think of when they played Clemson and I mean they played North Carolina, but yeah, touche. I'll give you that one. But I think he stick in game time. There's a difference between running a 40 with nothing but underwear on and instinctually, I think he's instinctual enough that he's going to be able to get over and make plays at the next level. So I think his highest that he's going to be going now is 10, but I realistically think 13 is the highest he'll go, and I don't see him dropping out of the first round. I think 13 to 32 is good. Is a good kind of big landing spot for him. So I'm not worried about it. I don't think NFL teams will be worried about it. I think they'll just be not. I think they'll be less or more hesitant to make him the highest drafted safety in the history of the NFL now. All right, the next big question, and this one's probably going to take up the majority of our time on here. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments, and we might be able to take a break from this one because this one's a big one. This one came from a couple of different members of my Dynasty Fantasy Football League, and they just wanted me to compare our teams to NFL teams. So I kind of looked at this beforehand and everything. I wasn't just going to go off the cuff. I felt like that was a little dangerous to do. So here I am going to share the teams so you guys can see what teams I'm talking about as I'm talking about them. Tampa traded Brady to Miami. What would he be worth? Gesicki and a first? Sorry, I thought someone just yelled at me through the window. Here, before we do that, let's go through this. I do like this one. All right, if Tampa traded Brady to Miami, what would he be worth? Gesicki and a first. I don't think this trade's going to happen. I really don't. I understand where there's smoke, there's fire, and someone wanted to bring it up, and it's a couple people have brought it up. What's his name? Armando Salguero from Miami Herald brought it up, which he's usually pretty accurate with this kind of stuff. I think you would have to take Tua in it. I think Miami wouldn't leave Tua with maybe you leave Tua behind Brady for 1 year, but then again, now you have to play him on his 5th year unless Brady's still there. It becomes a big situation. But I think he's definitely worth a first, which would be next year's first. We have Miami has 2 first rounders next year. So he'd be at least worth 1 first plus a piece. Definitely maybe Xavier Howard. Their cornerback depth is a little weak. So maybe you trade Xavier Howard and like Michael Dieter. I think they need a guard / center for Ali Marpet is back, but you can still slide Michael Dieter in at guard, and then in 2 years once Marpet's done. Plus, if Tom Brady leaves, I think Marpet might end up retiring again. So maybe you swap both of those. Maybe it's a first, Xavier Howard and Michael Dieter for Tom Brady and Ali Marpet. Ryan Jensen. I'm sorry. Ali Marpet did retire, didn't come back. Ryan Jensen's the center that decided to come back. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's a 2 for 2 plus a first. Good question. All right, let's get into this dynasty thing. Hopefully, it's not too drawn out, but let's see. All right, so I believe perfect. Give me 1 second. I got to figure out how to get back to. There we go. I was doing some analytical trade data stuff, so I had it on the 2020 teams. But here we are. This is the 2022. Yeah, so these are the updated teams. So, going by the first team I was looking at Austin's team, which is right here. So this is Austin's team. It's a deep dynasty, and I'm just going to slowly scroll through this. The notes I kind of came up with when I looked through this team is there are a couple studs on here. Tom Brady is going to be a top 7 quarterback. You got Eckler, Kamara, Evans. Gesicki should be decent. Keenan Allen. After that, you've got a couple okay pieces like Van Jefferson. I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be that good right now, but we'll see. He might end up being a Will Fuller to that team. Second quarterback is not very good. And so that's it. There's really no depth. So that's what I said. Some studs, below average. The other starters are below average, no depth. And so I kind of said it's like the Carolina Panthers. If you look at the Carolina Panthers, their defense is they've got a bunch of young studs on the defense. But where there are not studs, it's below average starters, including that offensive side especially. They got DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey, who if he's healthy. So I compared him to Carolina Panthers. I think that's actually a very generous comparison. So let's see. The second team I wanted to get to was Chase. So these are in a different order than they were when I was looking at them earlier. But for Chase, I said he's got a solid roster, decent depth, really not hurting at too many positions. Could always use better depth. But again, that's what this league's about, is about depth. So for this team with a bunch of good starters and the rest of his team solid, I put it as the Indianapolis Colts. I think the Colts are a team that's, always going to be, floating around that playoff push. Just need a couple more pieces to get them over that hump. So, and again, Chase made the championship 2 years in a row. Just ended up not being lucky with how the last couple weeks fell. So, going on to number 3, Kyle. Let's go to Kyle's team. All right, Kyle's team. He is in total rebuild mode. I said a few young core pieces. As you can see, a quarterback, ETN's promising. I like Michael Gallup. So that's about the core pieces that are there. And then I said decent depth. This depth is worse than probably half the teams in the league, but the depth is decent. Like if you look down here, he's got a couple guys I really like: Des Fitzpatrick, Amari Rodgers, Cornell Powell. I like those pieces as developmental guys, and he's got a bunch of picks. This one was kind of difficult, but not really. I had it as the Detroit Lions / New York Jets. So again, a team that doesn't really have much promise over the next 2 years, but I can see a path to them becoming at least relevant again. So that's Kyle's team. Next team, Noah. Let's go to Noah's team. Right. So I looked through it. As you can see, a lot of pretty good starters. Like every starter on here is solid. I'm worried about the second quarterback. I don't think he has a second quarterback. But everything else is like really solid, like above average starters. The depth, was I nice about the depth? No, I was not nice about the depth. And I'm looking through now. I mean, Julio Jones is not the same Julio Jones. Austin Hooper is a solid number 2 tight end. Sure. Braxton Berrios, maybe. Jerry Jeudy. Duvernay, I've given up on Duvernay. Tylan Wallace, again, he's been passed around in this league. But again, it's got enough picks. So I said, and that's me kind of crapping all over his team right now. I just mean the depth's not that good. And if the depth is good, it is kind of an older team as well. So I said that this was the Pittsburgh Steelers is kind of how I compare these teams. So teams that might barely scrape the playoffs right now, but they really need a big he needs a big youth push. He needs to hammer these next 2 drafts or trade some of these older players for some decent youth to continue kind of being relevant for the next couple years, or just kind of sell off some pieces and grow back up and, over the next 2 years, not be relevant, but 3 to 5 years down the line, be ready for that championship push. So, all right. I didn't know. Next would be Wyatt. I saw Wyatt in the chat. I don't know if Wyatt is in this chat. I saw him in our Dynasty chat. So, I think I'm not very nice to Wyatt. So hopefully he's not in here. If he is, whatever, man. This is your team. So, I said these were my notes. I'll read them just like I wrote them. No real 3-year outlook. No picks. No studs. No depth. That was my notes. And as you look, I was wrong. There is a stud. Michael Pittman, I think, is a stud, and St. Brown can turn into a stud. These two guys are still question marks. They're up in the air. Kenny Gainwell, probably not, just because I don't know, man. I don't know about Nick Sirianni. Of course, defensive players, he's got decent defensive players, but again, those are a dime a dozen. He got the wrong San Francisco running back. Dallas Goedert is an okay tight end. In fantasy, I think he's good in real life. Freiermuth is good. All right, cool. He's got 5 tight ends here, and they're probably 5 of his top 10 players on his team. So it's not a tight end premium league. But again, I love Wyatt, and I just felt like it would be funny to say all that stuff. So Wyatt's team is kind of the Jacksonville Jaguars / last year's Houston Texans, where the Houston Texans were really, really bad, but they didn't have first or second round pick. He doesn't have very many picks this year. Next year, he's going to have a couple decent ones. And I think if he hits on those, it'll send his team in the right direction. Again, this league is very, very, very depth-oriented. So if for 4 years he hits on a bunch of picks, all of a sudden he'll have the depth, I think, to compete. So that's why I said no real 3-year outlook. I think he's going to be bottom 3 for the next 3 years. And that's just how I feel. So Jacksonville Jaguars, Houston Texans, because again, those organizations are dumpster fires and always seem to be bottom 5. So, all right, let's go to a happier one, Brandon. Let's go see Brandon's team. So Brandon's team, solid starters. You look at all these people, and they're solid starters. There's a couple guys on here that you really wish you could upgrade, but they're not going to be 100% your downfall. Plus, Antonio Gibson will end up being in the starting lineup. Maybe Ayuk turns into something. Mike Williams just signed the extension. You got another quarterback right there. So I said solid starters, no real superstars other than, Matt Ryan. Solid depth, very young team. I have them as the Cincinnati Bengals. He's not ready to win it all yet, but if some other teams have some injuries, just like this year, he could make another push. So that's what I've got on Brandon's team. We've only got a couple more teams to go. Again, I keep looking back to see if anyone's got any other questions. We could take a break from this and go to that, but I'm thinking everyone's ready to see what their team's outlook looks like. So going on to the next one is Tyler. There we go, Tyler, who this team, over the last 2 years has the most wins in the league. Both years made the playoffs. Very strong team. I thought this year he was going to take a step back, but he hasn't. And now that Deshaun Watson is back, the quarterback room just got ridiculous. I think it's fighting for top 3 quarterback room between my team, Alex's team, and his team. So very good quarterback room. What did I say? Superstar starters. He's got a bunch of superstars. You got Herbert. You got Joe Mixon as a top 10 guy. I think Harris is going to take another step. CeeDee Lamb's good. Noah Fant's a top 10 tight end. Deebo Samuel's a top 3 guy. Again, Deshaun Watson, if he's not suspended, is good. A.J. Brown. And again, there's a couple pieces you wish you could upgrade, but there's a lot of superstars in that starting rotation. I said depth is a real issue. If running back ended up getting hurt, with only one, he's got Mostert, I think is going to be okay. If wide receiver gets hurt, he's got some receivers, honestly. And he's got some decent tight ends. But, oh, look at that, Michael Carter, too. So depth is an issue. But if one or two guys goes down, he's fine. And it's a fairly young core. The team as a whole is not that young, but that core of Claypool, who's, 23 years old. Going back to the top, Herbert, 24 years old. Again, 23 for Harris, 26 for Mixon, 24, 23, 23, 26 for Samuel. Deshaun Watson's 26 as well. So it's like that core is pretty young. So who did I? The Los Angeles Chargers is who I ended up thinking. You know what? This team kind of reminds me of the Chargers just because they've got superstars. But they don't really have the depth and the explosive on this. I mean, his team can end up scoring 300 points one week. You know, it's one of those teams. So there's the Chargers. Next team up is Alex, the other superstar quarterback team. There he is, Alex's team. So again, you got what did I say? Superstar studded starting roster. So, I mean, you look at the starting roster, and it is superstar studded are the words that I used. I mean, Mahomes on top of Burrow with Chubb, Henry. You got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Darren Waller still there. Don't forget about Stephon Diggs. Jared Goff's your number 3 quarterback, which is fine. You'll end up just throwing him in on bye weeks. You got the DeAndre Swift still. But these other guys, I wouldn't really count them as really anything other than if you got to use them for 1 week, they'll get you a few points. But again, that's why I said I think the depth is a little weak. He's got good tight end depth. The receiver depth is okay. I mean, in this league, there's a lot of receiver depth, I think. A lot of people don't have running back depth. So if I say your depth is weak, usually I mean running back depth. And quarterback depth, but at this case, that 3 deep is pretty decent at quarterback, or is really decent at quarterback, I should say. Probably second best 3 deep, probably the best 2 deep. So Los Angeles Rams, because again, he has no picks as well. He traded his picks for players. He's got no picks this year, no picks next year. He's got a first and a second in 2024. So compared that one to the Los Angeles Rams. So we got the Chargers and the Rams on the back-to-back. Next is Grant Haas. Let's look at Grant's team. All right, Grant's team. I said star heavy, older team, a few nice developmental pieces on the bench. But all in all, this team last year ended up winning the championship because it really didn't have very many injuries. Amari Cooper ended up getting injured for a little bit, but that was it. It was the least injury-prone team in the league, and especially in the playoffs. I think it had one injury in the playoffs. That was a starting caliber player. So that's why they ended up winning. Again, this is a top 3 team in the league. Like, that's not me saying anything bad about them. The depth is a little older and the depth isn't fully there. Again, this wide receiving core is very, very good. So, you know, the first 5 receivers are very, very good. And then there's a couple other receivers that are very solid that if you have to plug them in for 1 week, you feel okay doing it. But what did I say about them? Star heavy, older team, few developmental pieces on the bench. But again, if there's a couple injuries that are not receiver, if you get a couple running back injuries, a quarterback injury, even if you get 3 receiver injuries like Trey's team had last year, like my team had last year, like trying to think of a third team that really had some bad injuries. Chase's team had some pretty bad injuries as well. If Grant's team got those, I think they would be in trouble for a few weeks. So I put them as the Green Bay Packers, a team that's always a threat to win. But there's usually a chance because of depth that they won't win. So, next team is Trey's team. Let's go to Trey's team. Cooper, Godwin, Hopkins, Saquon, all out for the playoffs, but okay. All right, Grant. They were all out one game and not at the same time. You should have seen the week that I lost in the playoffs, who I was starting at running back, tight end, and receiver. But I understand. Yeah, they all had 1 week that they were out, but not all at the same time. And Amari Cooper, you weren't even playing half the time. Again, I said that you were a top 3 team in the league. No one's taking shots out here. I'm just saying that other than receiver, if you had an injury, I think your team would be in trouble. So going to Trey's team, what did I say? Trey has solid starters, questionable depth, and I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. So he's got solid starters. He's got Aaron Rodgers, who this year should be decent. I don't know who he's throwing to, but he should be decent. Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy. Deontay Johnson's good. Josh Jacobs is a solid number 2 running back. He's got some good guys here. If Penny plays like he did at the end, he'll be good. I don't know about Edmonds in Miami, but we'll see. Questionable depth. So Taylor Heineke might be the starting quarterback in Washington. I assume it's going to be Wentz, though. Gus Edwards, if someone gets injured. I like Curtis Samuel. That's a good piece. But Robinson, Hardman, can he take that next step? Russell Gage is a good piece, but Tim Patrick, Kenny Golladay, Like all these pieces, I just feel, well, they could do something. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Again, there's going to be 2 running backs in Jacksonville, but I think James Robinson will be fine. Rashad Bateman, maybe. I don't know. Shi Smith, probably not. Dwayne Eskridge, probably not. So solid starters. I think you got a solid starting roster. His depth could end up halfway through the year. You could be saying, wow, he's got the best depth in the league. Or halfway through this year, you can say, yeah, it's not the strongest bench. So I have them as a San Francisco 49ers. Again, I think he has a playoff caliber team. If he has the injuries he had last year, I think he'll miss the playoffs unless I'm seeing something, or unless I'm not seeing something that everyone else is. So, plus he's got a lot of picks this year, so he could be able to pick up a couple solid guys. Next, we'll go to Toby's team. There we go. All right. So with Toby's team, I said he's got solid starters. They're all older starters. The quality of he's got. What was I saying? Quality depth is weak, but young depth is promising. So he's got a bunch of older guys, but it's a solid starting roster. And then the quality of depth, he doesn't have a lot of guys. I mean, he's got Jamal Williams. If Swift goes down, that's great. Freeman, again, if Baltimore has another freak accident, he's got quarterback depth. Now, how good the quarterbacks will play, I don't know, but he has them. He's got people for Cam Akers, who he also has. He's got backups there. For Dalvin Cook, he's got backups there. Robbie Anderson. But again, this is like they're a bunch of handcuffs, which is great. But like if one of these other people, like you can't just throw them into a flex spot. Some of these young guys I really like. I like Des Patman. Chris Evans, De'Ami Brown. And again, his quarterback room is probably one of the deepest quarterback rooms. It's not the best quarterback room. Again, I think best quarterback room entirely goes to Alex. I think I had a pretty decent quarterback room. They are a little thin now because I did end up trading a couple people, and I think Tyler has another good top end quarterback room, but like deep quarterback room, he's got a bunch of guys that are between 10 and 20. So Minnesota Vikings is what I ended up saying, maybe because his best 2 players are from Vikings, but I think the Vikings do have a solid core to them, but they're an older core, not as good as they once were, and then they've got a couple developmental pieces, but that's about it on that team. So next and final one, we will do my team. What am I at the top? Yes. All right. So with my team, I said it has good depth. All the starters are above average. I didn't say I really had any superstars. I mean, I have Devontae Adams, and then my quarterbacks are good. But the team is just kind of above average in all spots. The depth, I have a good mix of vets and young guys. It's not the deepest, though. And so I just said it's the Baltimore Ravens, where it always seems like the next man up is okay. But again, it's not star-studded from top to bottom. So, plus I got some decent picks coming up in these next couple of years. This year I don't have any, other than that compensatory pick at 317. But all right, that's it for the dynasty thing. I knew a lot of people were going to. I knew a lot of people were going to be mad about that. But it actually doesn't look like anyone's mad except for Grant for some reason, who I literally said has the best starting roster in the entire league. So I don't really understand why he's mad blowing up the chat, but that's okay. Based on Dynasty Trade Calculator, Alex has the best team, followed by Tyler. Yeah, that's what I said. Didn't I say that? They've got the best starting lineups other than you? I said you have the best starting lineup, then Alex, then Tyler. And that's why I comped them to what? The Rams, the Chargers, and then the Packers. Like, you don't see Noah. I kind of dogged Noah's team. I low-key dogged Noah's team. And he's not in here saying anything, but that's all right. We'll see next year. We'll see after this draft too. Here, I'll do a quick rundown of the list again. So, Chase's. Let's go. Let's start at the very top. Sorry. Austin's team's the Carolina Panthers. Chase's team's the Indianapolis Colts. Kyle's team is a mixture of the Lions and the Jets. Noah's team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wyatt's team, Houston Texans / Jacksonville Jaguars. Brandon's team is the Bengals. Tyler's team, the Los Angeles Chargers. Alex's team, Los Angeles Rams. Grant's team, Green Bay Packers. Trey's team, San Francisco 49ers. Toby's team, Minnesota Vikings. Joey's team, my team, Baltimore Ravens. So I appreciate that question. It was fun to do today while I was just sitting here trying to brainstorm. I think I had one more thing before we see if there are any more. I understand that you're saying that you corrected me when I just corrected when you said my players weren't hurt in the playoffs because those 4 guys were out all playoffs. You're saying Amari Cooper, I agree, was out the entire playoffs. Godwin, sure, he tore his ACL. Okay. Hopkins and Saquon, okay, sure. They were out the entire playoffs, but they were there the entire time riding you except for Saquon, which is fine. I just said your receivers, you would have to go 3 deep for you to even think about being in trouble. I still don't understand what we're talking about here, but sure, okay, I stand corrected. You had 4 injuries in the playoffs. Ask Trey how many injuries he had in the playoffs. Oh, yeah, the last thing I was saying, if we had time, which it looks like we're going to 35 minutes, so probably end up ending now unless anyone wants to ask any more questions. But I wanted to kind of go over the way I evaluate quarterbacks, just because, again, everyone has different opinions about the quarterback in the quarterback market. And I think it's because people evaluate them differently. My evaluation, I kind of use it as I look at their actual evaluation that I do, and then also look at risk management as well on these picks because they're not 100%. And, you know, the draft is kind of like an economics exercise. I think John Middlecoff, ex-scout, who I listen to as a podcast, He talks about that a lot, is that it's about where you can get people and where you see value and upside. Um, and so kind of the way I do it is I evaluate what they are, what their best skills are. So a guy like Malik Willis, I think that he's got above and beyond talent. He's got Hall of Fame level talent. So with all that upside, you also have to look at his reading of the field, which is not very good. So again, he's not a day one starter. So what I kind of look at is their ceiling, their floor, and then again, what's that middle ground, and what are the percentages of all that stuff. It's kind of what MLB scouts do for prospects and farm systems and stuff like that to see if they're how they'll be in the major. So like with Malik Willis, actually we'll do someone like Kyle Trask, for example. So Kyle Trask came out. I really liked him. I think I had him as my QB5 last year. And so basically what I said was, what's his floor? I think his floor is like a really solid backup quarterback. Someone like right now how Andy Dalton is, where people are paying him $7 million, but really more of a guy like Matt Moore. Someone who is intelligent enough to read the defenses. He might not be talented enough to be a starter, but if he has to start 4 games because your starter's out, you're very certain he'll probably go 2-2. He's not going to lose you games. He's not going to win you games. So that's his floor. And it's what do you think the case of that is? And I said probably about 15% that he'll be that Matt Moore type. What's his ceiling? Ceiling's kind of like a Peyton Manning. Obviously, you don't always want the ceiling to be a Hall of Fame guy, but I mean, the ceiling of a Peyton Manning, I think, was there with how quickly he could read defenses, even though he only played in 15 total games in his college and high school career. So what is the likelihood of him being a Peyton Manning? I said probably about 5%. And so that's 20%. So you're still looking up. That middle ground is 80%. So what is that middle ground? And I said it's probably around that. Uh-oh. Someone's getting pulled over by the cops. It's probably around that Kirk Cousins range. Kirk Cousins, or kind of what you see Mac Jones right now, is what I think he could be. And so it's about 80% in there. And that's why he was my 4th guy. So like with Malik Willis, it's probably, what's the chances of him being a Patrick Mahomes? Probably a 10% chance, I think. What's the chances of him being Terrell Pryor? Probably 40% chance. And then the middle ground is like a Jordan Love, where you don't really know. He might be special, but he's most likely just going to sit back for a while. And so, I mean, that's what, 50%. So it's a 40% chance he's Terrell Pryor, 50% chance he's Jordan Love, and then 10% chance that he's Patrick Mahomes. So again, that doesn't really sound like a good case for a QB1 to be. When there's a 90% chance that he's Jordan Love or worse. So that's kind of how I do it. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up so people kind of can get where I'm coming from when I talk about quarterbacks and stuff like that. Tyler says, is the AFC West the best division in football? If not, what is your opinion? I think before this offseason, you could make a case that it was the NFC. Is that the NFC West? The one with Seattle and the Cardinals and 49ers and the Rams. So before all of this free agency stuff happened, I think that was the case. Now I think definitely the AFC West. I think the AFC North is pretty close second now. With Baltimore gonna be Baltimore again this year. Cincinnati is looking a lot better, as you can tell from the playoffs, and also this offseason they've gotten a lot better. The next team in that division would be this year is the Steelers, but I think next year, or if Deshaun Watson doesn't get suspended, I think Cleveland is very, very dangerous in that division as well. So all 4 of those teams I could see being playoff teams as well. So I think I think it's definitely AFC West. AFC North is creeping in there. I think NFC West, I think, is still good. The NFC North is not very good. So, Von Miller or Bobby Wagner? Who's better at this point in their careers? So has Von Miller ever led the league in sacks? That's a question I have to ask. I think Bobby Wagner is really good, and I think they're both Hall of Famers. Goodness, that is a really, really good question. Bobby Wagner's got one ring? Von Miller's got 2 rings. And he was a big key part to both of those rings. Super Bowl MVP as well. I think I'm going to say Von Miller. They're both first ballot Hall of Famers, though. And again, Super Bowl rings aren't the end all be all, but Von Miller was the reason why Peyton Manning got that ring in Denver, and it was a reason why Bobby Wagner didn't get that second ring. And then again, even with the Rams, Von Miller was a huge part to the Rams winning again. So I'm gonna go with Von Miller, but they're both probably. I don't want to say that. I was gonna say they're both probably top 5 in their positions of all time, but I would have to roll through the actual list and I'd get ratioed. So either way, they're first ballot Hall of Famers. Good question. Who do you think the best receiver in this draft is? I really, really, really love Chris Olave. I think his route running smooth. I think he's got good hands. I think he's fast as well. I think he's the best route runner in this draft. A lot of people say Garrett Wilson is better. I didn't see it. I think he's got smooth routes as well. He's got longer arms. Garrett Wilson's got like a freaky, like Devonta Smith type arm to body ratio. But from what I've seen, again, I didn't watch every single snap that he took, but from what I've seen, he makes really, really impressive catches, like catches that should not be made. But he also just kind of has some concentration drops at times too. So I like Chris Olave a lot. I think Jameson Williams is that guy though. Like I think he's that guy. So it's funny because I just named 3 guys that have played at Ohio State at one time. Jameson Williams ended up going to Alabama because he couldn't play at Ohio State. But I think that Ohio State wide receiver, is it the receivers coach, is it Brian Hartline there? Can someone tell me, Grant, is it Brian Hartline? Is he the wide receivers coach at Ohio State? Because even next year, you got Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's looking really good. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., Marvin Harrison's son, is looking really good as well. So you're talking about 3 guys in this draft that are all going to be there. Those are 3 first-round receivers, all started at Ohio State and should have really all played at Ohio State. But like Jameson Williams couldn't get playing time over Olave and Garrett Wilson. So I like Olave, but I think it's Jameson Williams. I don't think he'll go first, though. I think I'm hearing something like a big body receiver like a Drake London will go first, but I think they're trying to cash in on that Jamar Chase jump ball thing, but Jamar Chase isn't even that big of a receiver, and he's not a jump ball. So I don't know. I like Chris Olave and Jameson Williams, so I'll say 1 and 2. Yeah, Hartline's the GOAT. Yeah, so it is. It's freaking Brian Hartline is a wide receivers coach at Ohio State, and literally every single person that comes out of there, I understand they get a bunch of 5 stars and a bunch of high 4 stars at receivers, but bona fide studs. Their work with Hartline for 3 years and come out as day 1 NFL ready receivers is pretty impressive. So Tyler says Cincinnati and Baltimore are scary talent. Yeah, I know. That division could end up being worse than the AFC West in a little while. So, yeah, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Harrison, Akuba, and Fleming. Next year, all 5 stars. Yeah, I don't know the last 2, so I'll have to look them up. Go ahead. And Brian Hartline was just promoted to. Whoops. Brian Hartline was just promoted to passing game coordinator. Grant says, our Ohio State analyst says it was just a salary bump title. So I don't know if that's kind of just like a grooming thing, if maybe it's going to help Ryan Day out a little bit and just kind of learn behind Ryan Day type stuff on that stuff. But yeah, I like Brian Hartline. I thought he was great in Miami, and by great I mean like he was the best receiver Miami had for a few years there, other than when they signed Brandon Marshall. But yeah, I was a big fan of Brian Hartline. So that's all I have. I think we've ran for 47 minutes now. So that's been a good run time. I appreciate everyone stopping by. So Fleming and Akuba were both number one wide receivers in the 2020 and 2021 class in their respective classes. So, well, I appreciate you guys stopping by. I think next Monday we will do another mock draft Monday. Another mock draft Monday. Might do a twist on it this time. Might do some trades. Might just do a regular mock draft Monday. Who knows? But I appreciate you guys stopping by. Have a good one, and I will see you then. Peace.